We have started to record the most recent session of SPCH 1113 Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session. It is Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. This is persuasive speech topic selection. I'm going to be showing examples of persuasive speeches from the past few years, both from 2020 and 2021, respectively. But I also wanted to remind you of so many different topics that are available for you to examine in detail on my website, keeping in mind whether it is those videos that we're looking at today or some of the outlines that you can examine on the website. What is the storytelling structure for the students in terms of what I talked about yesterday? Time management, persuasibility, the quality of the research, the quality of the data, is their personal experience related to the topics that gives them added source credibility as persuasive speakers. So, with that in mind, let's go immediately to a topic that you may not necessarily think of off the top of your head regarding a quality persuasive speech. This is Maddie. You've seen her before. She gave this presentation during the pandemic, spring of 2021. Each of the presentations you're going to watch today are roughly in the area of about 5 or 6 minutes. In her case, as what we've been looking at with everyone, including your classmates right now, how are all of these individuals, when they are demonstrating or informing or persuading, how are they improving with content or delivery or visuals? So this is Maddie's Persuasive Speech, Spring 2021, The Importance of Kindness.
Hey, my name is Madison Pogue, and this is my persuasive speech on the importance of kindness. I always grew up with the phrase, kill people with kindness, so I thought this was the perfect time to share why it is so important to be kind to others. So what is kindness? It's really hard to be kind to people if you don't even know what it means. So here are 5 words that I thought of as soon as I thought of being kind to someone. There's a couple that kind of stand out, so I thought I'd just go over those real quick. But gentle is probably like, what do you mean by gentle? So be gentle with people. You have to understand everyone's human. People are going to make mistakes. People are growing. They're changing. They're evolving into who they will be. And you have to learn on the way there. So you have to be gentle with them just like you would be gentle with yourself. Warm-hearted is probably another word that, or a couple words that people are kind of a little bit, what do you mean by warm-hearted? So be inviting, be someone that people want to be around, and just be a light when you're in the room. Don't be someone who strips the room of anything inspiring or just nice and uplifting. Be someone who people want to be around. You're a source of happiness, you're a source of energy, you're a source of light to people and their lives. So why is it important? There are 3 things that came straight to my head as soon as I was thinking about this: the golden rule, the unknowns, and mental illnesses, which I'm going to dive deeper in. So the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated. So there's a lot of different ways that this saying goes, but it's all means the same thing. You want people to treat you with kindness, so you should treat others with kindness. So, I don't want to be yelled at. Personally, I really don't like being yelled at, so I'm never going to go to someone and start yelling at them. So it's just little things like that. It can get extreme, but just the basics are kind of what to focus on when it comes to being kind and being consciously kind to others. So the unknowns, what's going on in someone's life, the past, the present, and the future are all full of unknowns. We don't know everything that's going on in other people's lives. Only you know what's truly all going on in your life. I don't even know what all is going on in my life, if I'm being completely honest. So it's really hard to be able to judge someone's situation or how you should treat them. I think you should always treat someone with kindness, but especially since you don't know what they're dealing with at the moment. It's really important to stay kind and stay nice and be a positive person in someone's life, never be a negative force in someone's life. So, some things that you might not know about is someone passing away. That can really take a toll on someone's mental health, and which we'll get to that too, but it can really take a toll on them mentally, and you might not know because it might go on behind closed doors. Along with that, divorce or family, home type of issues that they are dealing with behind closed doors, so you have no idea. Trauma, whether this is getting in a huge car crash and then a bunch of things are happening in their life, or again, home life trauma that can mentally mess a lot of people up. So things like that, the list can go on, but those are just a few examples. So the last little bullet point that I had was mental illnesses. I touched on this with my athletes and mental illness speech a couple weeks ago, but mental illness is very prevalent in today, and especially in today's society with social media and everything like that. Depression, anxiety, just ADHD, all those kinds of things. If someone's kind to you, if you have a mental illness or not, it's always going to make you feel a little bit better, whether you like to admit it or not. Subconsciously, you are thinking, oh wow, they took time out of their day to be nice to me, whether it was helping me carry my stuff into school or complimenting my shoes. It's just, every little thing really matters, especially when it comes to people with mental illnesses, because they're fighting a battle in their head, and if you can help them at all with that, why not? So at least that's my thought process with that. If I can help someone out, help someone, whether it's with something, a task, or mentally, I want to do that. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you are kind to someone.
And that is the end of her presentation. She comes across as amazingly sincere throughout, understanding that kindness should not be taken for granted. Nothing is really in error other than one slight spelling issue at the beginning of her presentation. In one of her slides, she is misspelled generous, but look at her webcam. She has it set up where it's well lit. You can tell that she's practiced a lot. She's extemporaneous. She's conversational. She's persuasive. She's likable, and she is believable. But also notice in the upper left-hand side, she has taken Loom with the countdown and actually reversed it. She wanted to be right at 5 minutes, as she was, and you'll notice that when she gets near the beginning of the final portion of her speech, watch this in real time as I play it. The color of the counter is going to change, letting her know that she's in the last 30 seconds. Previous versions of Loom, if you went beyond 5 minutes, it would automatically cut you off. And she's not taking any chances, because once it gets to about 30 seconds, now all of a sudden she knows she needs to wrap it up. Complete sentence structure is obvious. Quality graphics, not overdoing the bullet points so she can remain extemporaneous. And that's where the conversationality flows. That's where the persuasibility is also going to come as well. So let's go ahead and pause it right there. I want to show you one more example of a persuasive speech before going to my website. The next person you are going to see is Sarah. She gave this speech also during the pandemic, the fall intersession of 2020, which was the month of December, after the fall semester had concluded. What she wanted to do was, like with Maddie, incorporate personal experiences with kindness. In this case, Sarah wanted to talk about the importance of positive, co-parenting, especially when you have blended houses with children. She talks about this in a very thoughtful manner. And here is Sarah's persuasive speech from just about 5 years ago discussing positive co-parenting. And here it is.
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah, and today I'm going to talk to you about positive co-parenting. This is something that is very important to me and affects my daily life. Not only am I from a divorced family, but I also have a blended family myself. I had 2 kids with my ex-husband, Lila and Kinsley, and then my now husband Joey has a child with his ex-wife, Peyton, and then together we have Harley. So we co-parent on all sides. So this is something that we have had to work on and still work on every day, but I feel like is important to a lot of people today. What is co-parenting? Co-parenting is where 2 or more parents work together to take care of their child in a positive and effective way. This can be done with just mom and dad, or with, when you get into the more blended families, mom, dad, stepmom. It's just important that we all work together to benefit our kids. Joint custody is what we should all strive for. It's not always the correct answer for every situation, but it is the ideal, what we should strive for. Joint custody is where both parents are equally sharing time in making decisions together. This does avoid the tricky, confusing custody orders that can get so out of hand and hard to keep up with. It eliminates that, and it gives you a more structured, easy to follow setup with your kids. This also shows your kids that what ended their marriage is not bigger than your love for them, because you can still come together in light of your differences and do what is best for them, and not just selfishly what you want, because of course we would all want our kids to ourselves, but that's not always what's best for them. What's best for them is having mom and dad in their lives as much as possible. Next step is happy kids. Positive co-parenting creates happy children. Your kids will be happier knowing that they have mom and dad, or even stepmom and stepdad in their life, and they don't feel like they have to choose one over the other. They say it takes a village to raise children, and that's so true. And the more kids that love your children, the better. So why not everybody love them and just leave it at that? It creates happy parents. Positive co-parenting is where you're going to put your child first, and then you forget the rest of everything else. It's not he said, she said, whatever had to do with your divorce. None of that even matters anymore. And once you realize that, it eliminates so much stress. You get to share the responsibility, and sharing your time can actually be a blessing. When your children are there, since they're not there all the time, it makes that time so much more special. Then when they're not there, then that actually gives you a break, which a lot of parents don't have. So you get that break to, make your eye appointments or doctor's appointments, or have date night with your spouse, because you have that free scheduled time that you can count on, which is so important. And then you'll have that other parent to count on too. Like, say I got stuck in traffic and my husband's at work, I can call my ex-husband and say, hey, I need you to get our kids because I'm stuck in traffic. And that's something that we're both putting aside our differences, knowing that we can lean on each other as long as it's to take care of our children. It's setting your kids up for success. By positively co-parenting, you are getting to be that positive role model for your child. Taking that stress and conflict out of parenting is going to reassure your child and set them up for success by learning from you. It also teaches them great conflict resolution by watching you and your current spouse or ex-spouse work together to come up with plans and solutions for things, which also teaches them teamwork, which is great traits to have going forward in life. And most importantly of all, it benefits everybody. It benefits you, it benefits your ex, it benefits your children most of all. And that is why this is something so important to me. because it benefits my beautiful children, who I'm going to show you here. This is from left to right: Peyton, Lila, Harley, and then down here at the bottom we have Kinsley. And this is why this is such important to me, and I hope you learned a little bit today. Thank you.
And this is what happens whenever I wait too long and she does not have as definitive a conclusion as I would like.
Hello everybody, my name is Finley and today I'll be
It
talking to you guys
automatically
about why you should
recycles
cycle.
into another presentation, which is what I did not want. So now I'm going to have to tweak this a little bit and see if I can get this back up on the screen for you to watch. But what I appreciate in her case, as I'm just waiting for it to recycle, and I will mute it, put the closed captioning on, let it play, and return to full screen. These are some of the issues that I face, by the way, guys, all the time whenever I'm trying to figure out the time, which is one reason for you on occasion seeing at the bottom of the screen. So that one took me by surprise, even though, like what you saw with Maddie, Sarah also has the reverse countdown. But I'll just go ahead and play this for a couple of moments because, like what you saw with our first presenter, our second presenter also has practiced a lot, very extemporaneous, very poised, very thoughtful, and because she has lived through this, she has much more credibility as a speaker because she knows of which she discusses the topic of co-parenting with blended families. And she does an excellent job of discussing many of the different strategies that families are going to use. So that's why all the family photos really help us visualize the concept of joint custody. She has a family photo with the bullet points. There's design consistency all the way through. So let's go ahead and now pause this and get to her conclusion in the next 40 seconds or so. Play it with the audio up, closed captioning down, and ideally stop it in mid-stride.
You and your current spouse or ex-spouse work together to come up with plans and solutions for things, which also teaches them teamwork, which is great traits to have going forward in life. And most importantly of all, it benefits everybody. It benefits you, it benefits your ex, it benefits your children most of all. And that is why this is something so important to me, because it benefits my beautiful children, who I'm going to show you here. This is from left to right: Peyton, Lila, Harley, and then down here at the bottom we have Kinsley. And this is why this is such important to me, and I hope you learned a little bit today. Thank you.
Here's where I got messed up with the time. I'm thinking she's going to take this all the way down to 0 when in fact she stops it just a tad on the early side. In any event, an excellent example of a persuasive speech. So now we're going to move on to my website. I'm waiting for it to recycle. The internet is being a little bit obstinate today. So I'm waiting for everything to recycle, and once it does, I will share it. This is the same exact data that's on my website, formatted a little bit differently. I showed this to you last week, but scrolling down, you're going to eventually find all different kinds of persuasive topics, storytelling approaches with the slides, the images, the thoughtful nature of putting together quality presentations, and starting right here with animal abuse, from this point on, it'll be in a slightly different area on my website. But here are some of the examples of speeches from the past few years, whether it be animal abuse or cruelty or cupping therapy. That was from an international student. A unique form of alternative health management, medical identification. An international student talked about misconceptions about Muslims, online education as an effective educational method. Let's put that up on the screen and look at this student's storytelling structure. She took my course 10 years ago during the summer in a face-to-face class in Overstreet Hall 302, the mass media classroom. How is she approaching the persuasion associated with, quote, online education as an effective educational method? She first defines what is electronic education. Then she talks about the truth about electronic or e-learning. Many universities or colleges may not survive by the end of this decade, or they're going to expand and be proactive in terms of quality online instruction. Some of the facts of online instruction, looking at that bottom balloon, quote, online learning will be available to a much larger number of people, which is true. And then this is very helpful with any type of timeline. This one from 1990 to today, which would have been 2015, the digital learning boom. It's a way for a lot of individuals who may not necessarily be 18 or 19 to further their education or take their education online from an institution that is very far away from them or across the world. 1990, they're doing baby steps. Southern Arkansas University really started around 2000 during the summer, experimenting with at least online learning tools similar to Blackboard. And then you have a blended mode for electronic learning, including chalk and board ruling classrooms. It won't be eliminated. It's going to be more of an assistant. And then the digital content, traditional versus an e-learning approach. There are many similarities. How the delivery mode is going to change. And it's much easier today for all of you because if you're taking a course online, maybe you're doing something on your phone. Or maybe there are going to be more virtual universities like the University of Phoenix, or you're going to have a traditional, like Southern Arkansas University, brick and mortar institution having an online footprint, especially for graduate courses, where individuals can't necessarily leave their jobs, but study at their leisure. Or you might have an individual who can't necessarily afford going to a university and being involved with online courses at a community college for a couple of years, saving money, and then possibly then moving to a university. That's been the case here on more than one occasion. What are the benefits of learning? All of those bullet points, whether it be on demand or private learning, self-service, repeatable. Many students have said they like that element where they can go back and learn over and over again. How do you have an e-learning culture? Well, think about this class. I have all of the videos, my website, all of the examples that are available for you to become a prominent public speaker. The e-learning tools with a number of bullet points there, including a video conference at the end, something like Zoom, even though I use Loom. And then the conclusion with her bullet points, quote, electronic learning offers opportunity to raise educational standards in schools. Large range of electronic tools are available for teaching and learning. Involvement of teachers and parents is important. Schools will need funding, and then she wraps it up with access and training. Now consider the structure of the slides going from back to front, examining the design consistency, examining the persuasibility, brick by brick, point by point, putting it into a format which to this student made sense. She tended to speak a little bit faster, which is why she has a dozen slides. Many of you aren't going to need that many. It all depends upon the comfort level that you have. Then as we continue to scroll down, school violence, school bullying, staying in shape, Airbnb, why you should exercise. Whenever you start to see the play mode within this data on my website, you know that they are audio or video. A couple of them up here are audio. So let's check this one out for a few seconds.
Good afternoon. My name is Summer Bassford. I'm giving a persuasive speech today about medical marijuana. What is medical marijuana and why is it so controversial? Medical marijuana is the marijuana plant itself or the chemicals from the plant prescribed to patients in order to treat diseases, conditions, and lessen pain. The reason it is so controversial is because a lot of people think it is unsafe.
The student that you're listening to right now is the same individual. When we were doing informative speeches last week, I actually showed you one where she is discussing the different breeds of dogs. But especially now, marijuana is misspelled, and that's why you always need to, as I indicated previously, double check using either artificial intelligence or Google or any tool at your disposal. Always double check. Now, marijuana is spelled correctly there, but you need to make certain that you are consistent all the way through. And that's what she was persuading us about with the dangers of certain drugs. Exercise, why SeaWorld should be canceled. That's also on my YouTube channel, by the way. We also have later stages of illness. There's the positive co-parenting speech. Now, here's how it formats when you look at it on my website. It'll look a little bit different. This is what we just saw from Sarah.
Hey everybody, my name is Sarah and today I'm going to talk to you about positive co-parenting. This is something that is very important to me and affects my daily life. Not only am I from a divorced family, but I also have a blended family myself. I had 2 kids with my ex-husband, Lila and Kinsley, and then my now husband, Joey, has a child.
We'll wait for the transition into our next slide. The bottom line here, guys, is that in more than one location, either on my YouTube channel or on my website, more often than not, I'm going to place a variety of different audio or video materials. There will be some here on my website that are not on my YouTube channel. Virtual reality in education, you saw that yesterday. There's the importance of kindness. All education should be free. Why schools should not have dress codes. And it goes on and on. Why you should garden. Why you should donate blood. The moon landing was not faked. I showed that to you yesterday. All different kinds of just outstanding examples of persuasive speeches. And then when we scroll back up to the top, let's take a look at one more outline, traveling with Airbnb. You'll recall we did see this student a couple of weeks ago. We looked at her outline for something called Kvass, K-V-A-S, which is a very, very weak Russian beer. We also looked at her last week when she was putting together an informative speech on Tatarstan. Traveling with Airbnb 10 years ago during the summer, 9:45, so she was in the same class as the young lady that you just saw her outline without online education. She describes Airbnb because not a lot of people will always know what it is. What are the pros of using the service? And then she provides an Airbnb clip For anything that is not necessarily an Airbnb, you may have to be buyer beware. There have been some instances where some nefarious individuals had put cameras in the house, video cameras. So you have to be very, very careful. Her personal experience in Austin with photos. And then if you're interested, she has a link to the website. Notice in her case also, design consistency with lots of images and minimal verbiage on the bullet points, which is going to help her remain extemporaneous, keeping in mind that these two outlines, whether it be online education or in this case with Airbnb, were in a face-to-face class, but the first summer session of 2015 with as much time as you had to prepare. Let's move on to another video example. This is from fall of 2020. It's right around 5 minutes in length. And this is Sam. She is talking about something that is near and dear to her heart, cartoons.
Hello, my name is Sam Hawkins, and this is my speech on cartoons and why animation is an important and useful medium. Many people tend to dismiss animation as lesser than live action because they see it as a genre for kids. However, animation is not some monolith. You can't categorize all animation under the same umbrella. Animation is a medium that encompasses many different types of stories and genres under it. There are plenty of different genres that can be animated. There is horror, there is action, there is comedy, and there's plenty of them that are aimed at adults, such as the ones on the screen, which are Archer and the Harley Quinn series. Certain character designs also work better animated than they do in live action. Too much CGI in live action can often come off as unnatural and make the audience lose their immersion. As you can see, the animated version, the animated concept art, I should say, of this character looks a lot more interesting and also just a lot easier to look at than the image on the right of the live action version that was animated using a lot of CGI but a live actor. Animation is also really good at capturing emotions and movements, as they can often be really exaggerated and over-exaggerated. Unlike in live action, where actors can only portray a reasonable amount of emotions without looking silly, animation is kind of not held to that thing and is sort of allowed to express in more exaggerated ways. Some examples of this are these characters who are expressing in ways for both dramatic and for comedic effects, and are able to get their emotions across really effectively because of the medium that they're in, allowing them to be more expressive and exaggerated. Animation can also be stylized in interesting ways. A good example of this is Into the Spider-Verse, which was animated to look as if it was a moving comic book. It uses many bright colors and halftones and a combination of 2D animation and 3D animation to get across this comic book feel. Another good example of a really well done animated series is BoJack Horseman, which uses symbolism and things like that to cover many serious topics such as depression and substance abuse and mental illnesses. A lot of these things are covered using symbolism and things like that to sort of get the emotion of the scene across in ways that couldn't be really achieved in live action. In conclusion, animation and cartoons can be for anybody. Animation is a time-consuming form of art, and even simple kids shows can take lots of time and effort to make. So animation as a medium should not be dismissed as something lesser than a live action. It takes just as much work to do and is just as creative. Here are some really good examples of animated series with interesting stories and characters and things like that. There's Over the Garden Wall, Tangled the series, Adventure Time, Avatar The Last Airbender, and BoJack Horseman, which I mentioned earlier, but I would advise to check out some content warnings for that one before watching it, because as I said, it covers a lot of heavy topics. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening, and I hope I could help you gain a new perspective on animation as a creative medium. I tend to dismiss animation as
what
lesser
Sam
than
does
life.
really well is incorporate her love of cartoons throughout the presentation. So it is visually interesting. You can tell that she's interested in the subject matter. The only piece of constructive criticism I would give her, as I've indicated to one of two of you in this class, is to make certain that your audio levels are high enough or that you are close enough to the webcam to make certain that you are projecting throughout. Let's go about halfway through, mute the audio, and do two things. Check the creative nature of her storytelling with all of the cartoon-oriented images, but also, is she speaking in complete sentences? Virtually everyone that you have seen as examples, going back to demonstrative speeches last week or persuasive speeches this week, and of course informative, are they coming across in complete sentence structure? And I would say the answer is yes. Very, very solid encapsulation of the artistic nature of cartoons. Now, you do see here, right there on the screen with the closed captioning, she does have a couple of ums, and those will come through when you're being honest and playing your videos in real time and a vocalic pops up on the screen. It's not major, but it's something to be aware of in the long run. Which brings us now to our fourth and final example of a persuasive speech. You've seen Jocelyn Keller before, the first person to ever present with Loom in my classes during the pandemic. I told you before, my Monday night speech course in spring of 2020 is abbreviated because of the pandemic. We're just trying to slap things together with how students, whether here or across the country, can send me videos. And Jocelyn, bless her heart, used Loom. You can see here, she is experimenting with technology at the time, going from a video which would be circular from the webcam. She decides to make it a little bit larger, and she has a backdrop behind her. Very similar to what she was doing from a smaller perspective for her informative speech, which you'll recall I showed last week from spring 2020, and it was on homeschooling. So what is Jocelyn doing on procrastination? Something that every student or every person can certainly identify with. Our final persuasive speech example is Jocelyn Keller from spring 2020, Why You Should Not Procrastinate.
Hello everyone, my name is Jocelyn Keller, and today I'm presenting my persuasive speech, Why You Should Not Procrastinate. Psychologists say that procrastinators are made by their environment and not born. 95% of the population is prone to procrastination, but that's separate from the 20% of the population that's prone to chronic procrastination. Chronic procrastination can be a disorder only treatable by cognitive behavioral therapy. It's brought on by poor self-regulation. This can be fostered in authoritarian families where the parents overregulate the children, and the children therefore have a poor sense of self-regulation. Doctors identify 3 main types of procrastination and procrastinators, here listed below. 1, the thrill seekers who wait until the last minute to get to the euphoric rush of the stress. Avoiders who are typically concerned with what other people think of them and avoid due to fear of the failure or even success. And lastly, decisional procrastinators who avoid making a choice because they feel as if it alleviates the responsibility of whatever the outcome may be. Studies have found that procrastination also has effects on your health. There's a correlation between procrastination and decreased general health. The effects may include lowered immune system, which means more susceptibility to colds specifically, susceptibility to obesity, gastrointestinal problems, insomnia due to procrastination of sleep, which can even then lead to sleep deprivation, which can lead to heart problems and more obesity, and poor mental and emotional health as well. People who procrastinate can feel ashamed of their procrastination and guilty about it. That can lead to low self-esteem, self-loathing, anxiety, depression, and it just propagates the cycle of procrastination. People who procrastinate also have higher levels of muscle tension, of migraines. They're more prone to do drugs because the poor impulse control and self-regulation go hand in hand with drug abuse. And procrastinators in general have poor health because they oftentimes will procrastinate going to the doctor. Procrastination also has a heavy stress on relationships, whether it be professional relationships like coworkers, team members, or business partners. If you procrastinate your task, they will lose faith in your ability to do the task. You could jeopardize your position, and you could even prevent yourself from ever rising up the ladder again, making you miss opportunities. Peer relationships, which could be students, project partners, extracurricular groups. If you procrastinate the completion of your share of work and lead to the undue stress of all of your teammates, then not only will they be unduly stressed, but then you will too. And that may even ruin a friendship or acquaintanceship. And personal relationships, of course, are highly affected by procrastination. In a relationship, you have to give 100% and 100%. And if you procrastinate your 100%, things might not go well. Avoiding responsibility of a task can cause the burden of undue stress for you and your partner, and because they have to deal with what you don't do. And of course, procrastination leads to poor financial decisions and lots of other financial issues. Procrastination of financial issues can lead to all of the following: delaying investment, which means missed opportunities in capital; financial indiscipline, which is caused by procrastination of budgeting, that can bankrupt you. Procrastinators often have no emergency fund due to never getting around to creating an emergency fund. They oftentimes delay crucial decisions, which means they have to rush to make the decision, which causes poor decisions and causes you to lose capital. They have extra fines and fees for procrastinating on payments and bills, like your taxes, loan payments, bills, and of course, procrastination of estate planning, like having no will, trust, or power of attorney. And lastly, the quality of work is most definitely affected by procrastination. Procrastinators sometimes claim to say that the stress of procrastination causes them to have more of a creative reaction to the work they have to do, but that's simply not true. Any creativity displayed is just a fraction of what could have been achieved had they not procrastinated. Studies show that procrastinators take longer, they make more mistakes, and they believe themselves to be doing better than they actually are at activities. Their work is often unpolished and unedited, and their quality is at times lowered to such a shameful extent that it promotes low self-esteem, which in turn could promote, again, the cycle of procrastination. And in conclusion, that is why I think you should not procrastinate.
She has a very strong conclusion, which I'm going to replay with the closed captioning up in just a moment. But let's look at this screen. It's okay to experiment. The challenge that you face is trying to read information in those bullet points. She can do it very easily off of her computer or laptop, but for us, it's a little bit challenging. But it's okay to experiment. Later on, I would probably tell her to take the original circular webcam shot and probably place it in an area where she feels comfortable, because then what you have for your slides will not be as small as they are here. But I'm going to forgive her for that, because I'm going to get to roughly about the last minute. Listen to the way that she is reinforcing the persuasive element of procrastination, and pay attention to her eye contact. She is being extemporaneous. She's making a conscious effort to remain that way. That's the one positive element of having a much larger webcam, because when you look at her eyes, she'll look off a little bit for a moment to gather her thoughts, but it's not something that is being read. So let's watch this with closed captioning up the last minute.
Rush to make the decision, which causes poor decisions and causes you to lose capital. They have extra fines and fees for procrastinating on payments and bills, like your taxes, loan payments, bills, and of course, procrastination of estate planning, like having no will, trust, or power of attorney. And lastly, the quality of work is most definitely affected by procrastination. Procrastinators sometimes claim to say that the stress of procrastination causes them to have more of a creative reaction to the work they have to do, but that's simply not true. Any creativity displayed is just a fraction of what could have been achieved had they not procrastinated. Studies show that procrastinators take longer, they make more mistakes, and they believe themselves to be doing better than they actually are at activities. Their work is often unpolished and unedited, and their quality is at times lowered to such a shameful extent that it promotes low self-esteem, which in turn could promote, again, the cycle of procrastination. And in conclusion, that is why I think you should not procrastinate.
The reason that I really wanted to show you her conclusion is that when it comes to procrastinating, even in a public speaking course, she talks about the element of, among other things, being unpolished because you haven't practiced as much. Think about that with anything that you might be doing in life. The longer you wait, the more challenging it's going to be for you to try to reach your goal, or to follow the process daily, weekly, monthly, yearly of trying to reach a goal. And your goal in this case, over 19 class sessions, is to maximize your ability with content, delivery, visuals, to become a quality researcher, writer, and most importantly, public speaker, either with an online circumstance as we're in right now, or what she's doing with her webcam, or how you're going to be performing face to face. I want to go to my YouTube channel next. Depending upon the time of day that I record these, occasionally the internet is going to be somewhat challenging to deal with, because some of my materials will recycle. On my YouTube channel, you can see all kinds of material that's related to this course, or you can click on videos and see some of the works that have been concluded at this point in the first summer session. going back to our first course session, which of course are all available on Blackboard, or when you return home, go to this playlist right here. Click on it. From this location, you just scroll down a long way, and eventually it's going to lead you into SPCH 1113, or just demonstrative presentations, then informative. All of these, as I told you before, are representative examples from previous courses that are posted chronologically by when they were offered, and we will slowly get down to persuasive, which is what you see right here with Jocelyn. Tons and tons of materials that you can examine. Dozens here and dozens more that are available on my website, down to why you should donate blood from 2024 and virtual reality in education, which we watched yesterday. One more bit of interactivity before we wrap things up for the day. And in this case, we are going to be going to the student preview mode of Blackboard. The announcements area, which is updated weekly, reminding you 2 p.m. on Wednesday for day 1 or 2 p.m. on Thursday for day 2 of submitting your persuasive speeches. And then with content, remember, this is how you see it. You have the course syllabus, all of the information at your disposal, the course videos, which will be updated shortly. Everything here. Student speech examples, where I included virtual reality in education. And then down here, with what your classmates have done so far, with demonstrative and informative speech video materials. So our course video for today will be posted right here in just a couple of moments. I will return to me to wrap things up for today. Sometimes interconnectivity can be a challenge. So whenever I'm pausing 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004 in the back of my mind while you're looking at another tab, I'm waiting for something to recycle. That's one of the challenges we always face, as you're well aware, at this point, with making certain that everything has a nice flow to it. I will be frustrated at times with something that either is on Blackboard or on Loom that's not exactly the way that I want, but I go ahead and press onward because I know 98 or 99% of what I'm doing isn't too bad. And that's the way you should be. Whenever you're recording a persuasive speech video this week or a wild card speech video next week, while you're speaking, it may not necessarily roll off of your tongue in your respective minds as being perfect, but you keep going. Then you go back and watch it and think, you know what, that's not too bad. But let me record 1 or 2 more, and then I will submit either to Professor Reppert's SAU or to his alternate Yahoo Prof. James Reppert SAU address, what I think is most representative of my abilities in terms of overall improvement for a persuasive speech presentation. If you decide to wait a little bit longer and do it on Thursday, that's fine. Whoever decides to go tomorrow for Wednesday, it might be a little bit of a shorter class period, but I might fill the time by talking a little bit about wildcards or the self-evaluation speech critiques. No matter what, please make certain that you are watching all of the videos in their entirety. That's how you learn. On occasion, I might receive an email from a student about a subject matter that is discussed in great detail on more than one video. So it's your responsibility to go into Blackboard on a regular basis and watch the videos because they are posted daily and recorded on the same day, as we are right now because this is Tuesday afternoon. Good luck with your persuasive speeches, either for tomorrow, day 1, or for Thursday, day 2. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking, for the first summer session of 2025, that concludes the recording session for today.